The Russian propaganda is about nudging and nuance. And so, for example, the J.D. Vance said the other day, if this doesn't stop, the Ukrainians will not win the war. I think there's a strange opinion in the mainstream media that if this lasts for a few more years, the Russians will not survive. The Ukrainians will regain their territory and everything will return to what it was before the war. But this is not the reality in which we live. And Vance was quoted by the RIA Novosti. Now, the newspaper that printed that, which is the EAD, the Eurasia Daily, says in its headline, Kyiv will not win. If the war continues, it may escalate into a nuclear one, that, according to Vance. That's not actually what Vance said. And it concludes, if the hostilities do not stop, then as a result, it could escalate into a nuclear war, the vice president noted. It's not. It's not what he said. It's extraordinary. And this is the way Russia seems to work. What's interesting is reading the telegram reports from the front, from Russia, from Ukraine. When we think of armies at war, we often imagine either valour or atrocity, either proud banners waving in victory or chilling acts of brutality. But what if neither triumph nor even ideological fervour remains? What if an army descends instead into pure despair, where deceit and death are indistinguishable and evil rots its sinews from within? And that is certainly how how I interpret the telegram reports, which occur on a daily basis, and all you have to do is read the Russian transcripts. And today, we look at the Russian forces operating in Ukraine, a force that's not celebrating victory but stewing in decay and desperation. That is not the force that is eventually going to prevail. That is the force that really is, contrary to Vance's comment, eventually going to be overwhelmed. And I don't think it's going to be that Ukraine is going to be successful on the battlefield. I think it's going to be that Russian people are going to have had enough of sending their children to this to this absurd conflict that they neither wanted nor will benefit from. Uh, the, um, the recent communications. There's a project organised by Ukraine called "I Want to Live," and it paints a portrait more damning than any outsider's analysis. And within the calls which are published, Russian soldiers speak not of strategies of honour but of survival, from their own commanders, from their fellow soldiers, even from themselves. The term 500 id, that's army slang meaning a refusal to obey orders. And when one Russian soldier disobeyed by turning on a radio, revealing his group's position, his comrades immediately assumed he would be killed, that his belongings were therefore looted before his body even cooled. There was no court-martial, no inquiry, only the assumption of a summary execution because he'd disobeyed orders, the casual expectation of death. In the Russian army today, death is not a risk, it's an expectation, as surely as it was when Kemal Mustafa Ataturk told his soldiers facing the Gallipoli campaign, I don't expect you to fight, I expect you to die. Ataturk's command was about bravery and about valour and steadfastness and holding the position. Here, it's about exploitation and despair. What emerges from these conversations is a grotesque culture where loyalty, decency, and even basic human ties have collapsed. A soldier who shows weakness is not encouraged, but threatened with forced meat assaults, suicidal charges into enemy fire, used both as punishment and cannon fodder. Soldiers speak openly about needing to watch and shoot comrades who disobey. The motherland, which in propaganda is exalted as sacred, is revealed as indifferent. Soldiers' belongings are divided by their peers. Families are routinely lied to, informed that their sons are either missing or deserted. No graves, no honour, or no remembrance, only bureaucratic erasure. This is not an army fighting for a cause. This is an army fighting to avoid annihilation, if not by Ukrainians, then by each other. Command structures have similarly crumbled into parody. Soldiers report entire battalions disappearing into forests, refusing to fight. Requests for basic leave have been denied for years, leading to desperate plots to desert en masse. One soldier, after returning home for 3 days' leave, was so overcome with despair, being ordered back to the front, that he hanged himself. Another captured conversation features a wife telling her husband that we'll all die for the Tsar, sarcastically comparing Putin's Russia to North Korea, a state where bread is optional, where loyalty is mandatory. What is most chilling is not the horror itself. War is always horrific. But the banality of it, the casual language, the grim jokes, the ordinary acceptance of mass death as inevitable and meaningless. Even looting and brutality have been commodified. Units steal from civilians and from one another. War, as one intercepted call reveals, has become a business. Sadists run units. Bribes purchase reassignment. Surrender paradoxically offers the only realistic hope for survival. It's a system soaked in blood, rot, and betrayal. A system that, like a dying animal, lashes out blindly but cannot heal itself. The Russian army today is not the Red Army of history. It's not even the battered or stubborn force of early 2022. It's something far darker. It's a hollow, despairing horde where evil has seeped into every aspect of military life, because that's what evil does when it's released. We must resist the temptation to caricature this simply as incompetence. It's something far worse. It's a case study in moral collapse, where a political system's cynicism and violence is projected onto its soldiers, who are stripped even of the idea that sacrifice has meaning. The intercepted calls tell a tragic story, not of valiant defenders of a homeland, but of young men abandoned by their leaders, betrayed by their comrades, and left to rot physically, morally, spiritually. In the end, these aren't soldiers anymore. They are victims and sometimes monsters of a regime that devours its own. There's no victory to be found in such a system, only entropy, only ruin. I was in Moscow in 2019. I saw the beginnings of this, and I was horrified. And now this has flowered into a fully grown picture of Dante's Inferno. No better description. And I have seen decay in that society. I was in Russia teaching for about 10 years, and during that time, Crimea was occupied, and from the occupation of Crimea to the time when I left, I saw decay step in. I saw moral degradation take over. I saw deceit, and I was the victim of quite a lot of deceit as well. And as I say, I'm pleased to be out of there. I miss my friends in Russia enormously, and I worry dreadfully about people I know, people I've taught, who may be drafted into the army and may have no choice. But the army in Russia is not a noble profession at the moment. The army in Russia is something that has been overtaken by something very dark, and that I can only call evil. And I look at the telegram channels, and I look at the newspapers, and I worry.